Welcome back. We're continuing our series on Feel Better Fast and Make It Last. We're having so much fun. We just talked about how Tana is the whole brain experience for me. And
not sure that that's always a good thing, but I keep you on your toes.
You are the best thing that has ever happened to me.
Just remember that the next time I scare you when pit bulls come around.
Oh my goodness. You are a whole brain experience.
I'll just never forget. We left the parking lot and you're like, oh my God, I have PTSD. And I'm like, I know, me too. Wasn't that terrible? And you looked at me, you go, no, because of you. I was like, me? What did I do? I'm not the one who attacked us.
It was your reaction of screaming
right,
to a
I'm
den.
Mama Bear.
Right. You didn't know if you had a gun.
At the moment, it didn't matter. It was just reaction. Actually, probably wasn't that smart. I actually said to him, I think he better, because...
Brain XL is the formula that Feel Better Fast is based on. And the B in brain is actually brain. That if you want to feel better fast, you have to take care of the physical functioning of your brain. Those of you that listen to the Brain Warriors Way, that is not a surprise. But how can you do that, in fact, to feel better fast? And I horrified myself a number of years ago when I figured out brain health is really three things. Brain envy, you got to care about it. Avoid anything that hurts your brain. Do things that help it. And so how do you know what to do and what to avoid? And when I wrote Memory Rescue, we came up with this great mnemonic that I just want to refresh your memory with. It's Bright Minds. So if you want to know what to avoid and what to do, if you want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it if it's headed to the dark place, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. And in Feel Better Fast and Make It Last, I go through a summary of those. If you really want to know like all the science behind each of them, get my book Memory Rescue. But you know, since we live in a Cliff Notes society, I don't know if you read them when you were in high school and college. I certainly did. It's like, tell me the meat of Macbeth. So
That's so funny.
So this is like the Cliff Notes of brain health. The B in Bright Minds is for blood flow. Low blood flow is the number one brain imaging predictor of Alzheimer's disease. Anything that decreases blood flow prematurely ages your brain. So yes, if you get a scan, you know if you have low blood flow. But hypertension, any form of heart disease, erectile dysfunction, not exercising, those are all symptoms that you may have low blood flow to your brain. If you have brain fog, to increase blood flow, exercise. That's why exercise is so important. I've become obsessed with my Fitbit. And when we were in Europe recently, Chloe was so excited that she'd get 25,000 steps a day. A little worn out, but so excited.
Yep.
Exercise is just so important. Supplements like ginkgo, vinpocetine increase blood flow. And food.
Yeah.
Like beets, cayenne pepper, oregano. Oh my goodness, the lamb chops in Greece.
Oh, they were so
They were
good.
so good. And what did they do? How did they make them so good?
It was like three things. Well, they marinated them overnight, but they used oregano, salt, pepper, and a little olive oil. Like, it was amazing. And it's the first time I've ever heard you say they were as good or better than mine, ever, in a restaurant.
And your lamb chops.
Mine have rosemary.
Are
Mine have
amazing.
rosemary, thyme, and sage. But those were amazing, and they were so simple.
So simple.
Yeah.
So good. The R in Bright Minds is retirement and aging. When you stop learning, your brain starts dying. So make new learning part of your everyday life. The I is inflammation. How do you know if you have inflammation in your body?
Oh,
C-reactive protein, that's a blood test.
yeah. So when we were in Europe, so, people always, including me occasionally, get this thought like, oh, I'm so good all the time. It's okay if I relax a little, right? So we were in Europe, and of course I wanted to try the famous Angelina's hot chocolate, and I had a couple croissants. And so all of a sudden I'm waking up and I'm like, oh my God, my hands hurt so bad. What did I do to my hands? I thought I hurt my hand. Couldn't open and close my hands. And we're walking, and on the last day, I thought I sprained my ankle. My ankle swelled up so badly. It was the inflammation. So you think you can get away with a little, but in my case, some people can get away with more than others. I can't get away with very much at all, just because I'm prone to it with my health history. That's inflammation. So, I mean, some of us need a C-reactive protein test. Some of us just know if you're actually paying attention when your pain increases. I had brain fog from hell. I felt hungover, and just, that you can't clear the cobwebs. That's inflammation starting. So
inflammation can be pain, can be brain fog. Inflammation's associated with depression and dementia.
Good news is it goes away fast.
And so a
If
blood
you do
test,
the right things.
C-reactive protein. Another one, your omega-3 index. Low levels of omega-3 fatty acids, rampant in our society. One study, 97% of people have low levels of omega-3 fatty acids. So it's so important. So anti-inflammatory, omega-3s, omega-3 Power, BrainMD, our company, highly purified, highly concentrated, can really help normalize your omega-3 index. We certainly see that among our patients. Also, probiotics, getting your gut right, really helps tamp down inflammation in the body.
Yeah, so just a little side note, when I was feeling the pain and my ankle swelled up in my hand, I couldn't get my ring on. It was and this is only just a few days of this. And I wasn't even eating, I was still 85-15 or 80-20. I was still eating mostly, compared to what most people eat, I was eating still really good. So I just increased my fish oil. And I went 100%. 100% clean. Just ate heavily plant-based, little bit of clean, very clean protein, and did green drinks and a lot of water. 3 days. 3 days. Inflammation gone. Hand stopped hurting. Ankle was fine. I didn't sprain it. So you can reverse it pretty quickly. That's feeling better fast by doing the right things, right?
Because you love yourself.
Right.
And you love your husband, because when you're in pain, I'm in pain too.
Well, and the thought that came to my mind was, we're having this great vacation, and here's what helps me, and some people need something to help them. What came to my mind, it's about loving myself, but it was also, look, I get to go on these great vacations with my daughter and my husband. I'm not willing to feel like an old mom. We did this for my 50th birthday, and I generally feel much younger than my age. So I'm I don't really feel my age. I've never really felt my age. And all of a sudden I felt my age. And I'm whoa, that was fast. I'm not willing to do that if I can do something to prevent it. Now things happen and some of us can't, but I can. That was completely self-induced, self-inflicted. And I'm not willing to age myself prematurely and take that time away from my family and not go do fun things and not go hiking and not be the cool, fun mom when I can be. Right? If something were to happen and I couldn't, that's very different than me self-inducing it, self-inflicting it. That's not okay. That just wasn't okay with me. So
let's go through 2 more of the risk factors, and then we'll complete it in the next podcast. So for inflammation, omega-3 fatty acids, curcumin.
I put that in too.
We also
Forgot
make brain
Yep.
curcumins. It helps me so much because I know I'm inflamed when my knees hurt.
And even doctors will recommend that. My chiropractor recommends it. It's a great anti-inflammatory. I put that in my supplements too.
But I take 2 omega-3 Power, 3 brain curcumins
I take 4,
every
and I take
day.
3 of those.
And my knees don't hurt.
Yeah.
And I walked, some days we walked 11 miles.
Right.
And some of it was actually uphill.
We
when
walked
went
almost
to
100
Montmartre.
miles in 10 days because we had travel days in there.
Yeah, it was really awesome. So anti-inflammatory, probiotics, omega-3s, brain curcumins, and eating right, just as you had mentioned. The G in Bright Minds is genetics. Know what runs in your families, and genes are not a death sentence. They should be a wake-up call to get healthy. And the genetic risk for Alzheimer's disease, for example, many scientists think it's too much of beta amyloid protein in the brain. Well, they've actually found that curcumins, vitamin D, blueberries, green tea decrease the beta amyloid load in the brain. And, so many of my colleagues, what's the med? What's the med? Let's, do all these medication trials. And I'm like, well, why don't you do natural things to help the brain? Well, I'm not at risk for Alzheimer's disease in my family history, but I am at risk for heart disease.
Yeah, see, I'm at risk for so many things.
Doing the right thing can help decrease
it's funny that you say that, because I'm not at risk for Alzheimer's disease, but we've got cancer, diabetes, obesity, heart disease, like
depression.
You name it, depression. And those things are the risk factors for Alzheimer's disease, right? So for so long I thought, this isn't fair, that my genetically I'm just like, it just sucks. Like, right, I've had cancer 3 times. I was really sick as a kid. And like I said, I go off track a little bit and it just really affects me. But then I started thinking, what did I used to tell my daughter when she was little? Fair is a place where they sell bad food and they have farm animals, right? Near us, it's a city called Pomona. It's a place with bad food and farm animals, right? So it has nothing to do with life. Life is not fair. Stuff happens to people. It happens to babies. It's not fair. It's about what you do to take control and make it better. So get over the fact that it's not fair. You take 2 fish oil. I have to take 4. That's what makes me feel better, right? So what? Just do it.
And the most important strategy for the G in Bright Minds, genetics, is if you have stuff in your family, you need to be
more serious
about doing the right thing. So often I've heard it said, obesity runs in my family, that's why I'm fat.
That's an excuse.
Obesity runs in my family, but I'm not fat. Why? Because I don't give in to the behaviors, making it likely to be so. Right. And so the H in Bright Minds is head trauma. You want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it if it's headed to the dark place. You have to prevent that. Or if you've had it, I was just on Dr. Phil yesterday talking about fixing Gary Busey's brain. We've done a podcast week with Gary. Is traumatic brain injury ruins people's lives. And so doing whatever you can to avoid it, including when I was driving in Greece, being super careful in those little tiny cars, wear your seatbelt.
Yeah, it's funny, you start thinking differently.
Thoughtful.
When you were renting a car, you even called me, you said they have this little car, I'm like, do they have an SUV? Like, it's weird, you start thinking differently. Because when you know what we know, we want to be environmentally cautious, but we also want to be cautious of, our own bodies and our brains, and being in small cars scares me.
Safe cars are really important. Okay, stay with us. We're going to finish Bright Minds to help you feel better fast. If you go to feelbetterfast.com, you can pre-order the book. And if you pre-order the book, we will give you immediately the introduction in chapter 1 of the book. We'll be able to download that. We'll also give you a quick start guide to go, what are the cliff notes to feel better fast? How can I get through Feel Better Fast? We'll also give you Feel Better Fast audios, hypnosis audios, I Do For You, and we'll give you Tana's brand new cookbook. We'll give you a digital copy of the 10-Day Brain Boost. Stay with us. We are so happy you're staying with us. This is our series on Feel Better Fast and Make It Last, based on my brand new book, Feel Better Fast and Make It Last. And you can pre-order it at feelbetterfast.com. And when you do, there's 4 free gifts for you. Your new cookbook, the 10-Day Brain Boost, the introduction in chapter 1, which you can download immediately. Also, we have a quick start guide, so I think of it as sort of the cliff notes for Feel Better Fast and Make It Last. In addition, we'll give you Feel Better Fast audios, which are hypnosis audios I actually do for you. So we're in the middle of the B on the Brain XL formula. And B is brain. You got to get your brain right in order to feel better fast. And we're talking about, so what's the tiny habit for brain health that you ask yourself every day? Is this good for my brain or bad for it?
Right.
And we've been going through Bright Minds. And Bright Minds is if you want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it if it's headed to the dark place, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors that steal your mind. And we've talked about blood flow, retirement and aging, inflammation, genetics, head trauma. Mm-hmm. Well, the T in Bright Minds is toxins. One of the big lessons from the imaging work that we've done is that if you're exposed to toxins, that it can clearly damage your brain. Mm-hmm. And you were a volunteer for the city of Newport Beach,
right,
where we live.
A CERT volunteer means an emergency response volunteer for the city.
And you just spent time with some of the firefighters.
Right. And they were describing when they go out to, I always thought it was like house fires that were the big problem. It's the wildfires. What these guys were exposed to is crazy. Like they do 24 on, 24 off. And they're in the middle of this like horrible environment, inhaling these fumes for 24 hours at a time. I was like, and they're like, yeah, then they have to give us 24 hours off so we can go get some fresh air in our lungs. And I'm like, 24 hours is insane. It's insane.
So almost all the firefighters that we've seen have toxic looking brains. It's overall bumpy and low blood flow. And, initially I saw clearly that drugs and alcohol cause toxicity in the brain. But then with firefighters,
sure,
it's clearly inhalants, air pollution can do it, mold, heavy metal exposure. 60% of the lipstick sold in the United States has
so
lead
we need
in
to talk for a minute.
I call it the kiss of
death.
Okay,
so hold on, because now there are some cosmetic companies are getting smart, and there are some cosmetic companies that make all natural cosmetics. A lot of them don't work quite as well as the regular cosmetics. So like I know for me, for filming, I sadly a lot of times will have to wear regular cosmetics, but I try to limit how much I wear, how often now of the less natural stuff. But you asked me a question the other day, and this is where it gets harder, because the older we get, we're in this like lotions and potions stage. And I know a lot of people listening to me are thinking the same thing, the women. We get this lotions and potions stage just in order to like maintain ourselves. Like I'm going to be 50 in December. And I'm like, you asked me this question and I almost fell out of my chair. You're like, well, how great would you be if you didn't color your hair? I'm not finding out, okay? Because I think I'm finally probably the platinum color that I used to think I wanted to be, but not the platinum I want to be, right? So not the platinum I used to dream about. So that's not happening. I'm not going to not color my hair. So it makes you wonder, how much can you get away with, So
well, it's always a trade-off, right? Between what you want and what you're willing to do to have the best brain, because with your best brain comes your best
right, but you're the one who
life.
Put me like out in the public eye, and so it's your fault.
It doesn't matter.
It's
if I didn't put you in the public eye, you'd still have the public life. You would still.
But it's worse now because it's like frequently,
Well, I'll take it. It's all my fault. Always.
It's
if
always
you can just
easier.
say it's my fault.
Yeah, it's easier. Yeah.
So how do you deal with toxins?
You never answered my question.
You support the 4 organs of detoxification.
Women are more exposed to that stuff, though.
Women are more exposed.
So we have to be careful.
And women also have a higher incidence of Alzheimer's disease.
Oh.
So
ouch.
I want you to be serious. You can actually download an app. I talk about it in the book. It's called Think dirty. It's
Yeah, I
not
got
what
that
you
app.
think it is. It allows you to scan all of your personal products.
So
and it'll
two
tell
products
you,
I found that were the worst: sunscreen and hairspray. There's like almost nothing healthy in those two. So there are some hair sunscreens you can find that are okay, but hairspray is, yeah, not going to happen. It's bad.
So, if you're going to engage in toxic behaviors, you want to super support the 4 organs of detoxification. I mean, obviously, the big thing about toxins is avoid them. Avoid pesticide-laden foods, avoid things like parabens and phthalates because they're hormone disruptors. We'll talk about that. And then support the 4 organs of detoxification. Your kidneys, drink more water. Your gut, eat more fiber to keep things moving. Your liver, stop the alcohol and eat foods like brassicas. So we go to this restaurant in Newport Beach we like a lot called Babette's, and they actually have a dish on their menu called brassicas, and they're amazing.
And I always find
cauliflower,
restaurants,
cabbage, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts.
well, I love finding restaurants that just have green juices. It's just a good way to get a little boost. I'd have
but
green
without
juices.
the apple juice.
Yeah, I usually ask for it without apple or with minimal, like a quarter of an apple, just to take the bite away if you don't like it. I like it green. Some people don't.
And
Or a little beet in it.
support your skin because your skin is the largest organ in your body and it's a detoxifying organ. So sweat with exercise or take saunas. Study from Finland, people who took 0 to 1 sauna a week compared to those who took 2 to 3 saunas a week. So the 2 to 3 saunas a week had 30% less risk of Alzheimer's disease.
Interesting.
Those who had 5 to 7 sauna sessions a week had 60% lower risk of Alzheimer's disease. So, and we already talked about saunas, and exercise are 2 techniques to help you feel better fast.
Right.
The M in Bright Minds, to keep your brain healthy, is mental health challenges. If you want to feel better fast, clearly anxiety, depression, PTSD, ADHD, bipolar disorder, they age your brain. So getting treatment is really important, but treatment doesn't necessarily mean medication because head-to-head against antidepressants, exercise, omega-3 fatty acids, and learning not to believe every stupid thing you think, which we're going to talk about soon, has been found to be equally effective. The I in Bright Minds, the second I is immunity and infections. And, I'm a psychiatrist. Why do I care about infections and your immune system? Because we found that things like Lyme disease and infection or even strep can be a major cause of psychiatric problems. So if you're struggling with anxiety or depression and it's not getting better, it's critical to work with your doctor to get tested.
And people
for
don't think
infections.
about this. Like, if you've been on chronic antibiotics when you were growing up for those infections, the infections themselves can be problematic. But if you've been on chronic antibiotics to treat those infections, you've damaged your gut, right? And they found that even antibiotics from when you were a child affect you later in life as an adult. Okay, they damage your gut, and it's very hard for your gut to recover and repair itself unless you are actively really working on it. So when your gut isn't healthy, it affects your brain. So it's really important to know this stuff and be consciously working on it.
And in animals who got antibiotics when they were young, it actually changed serotonin production for the rest of their lives.
Right. People don't know that.
And I know you had a lot of infections when you were a child.
I was a very sick child.
And that changed your gut. But fixing gut health and
like
using
now
the
I
principles,
consciously work on it all the time.
And using the principles in Feel Better Fast can totally make a big difference for you. So with immunity and infections, test your vitamin D level, optimize it. So normal is between 30 and 100, but there's a fascinating study. People who had a vitamin D level under 20, had twice the risk of cancer. Twice the risk of cancer to those whose vitamin D was over 40. So I try to keep mine at about 80, which means I take about 7,000 units of vitamin D a
I
day.
take about 9.
And
7 to
that
9.
way I maintain a healthy
So
level.
interesting.
And I hardly ever get sick. We've just gone through this bout of sickness.
Yeah, he never gets sick. It's almost irritating. I mean, I love him to death. For his sake, I'm glad, but it's so irritating that I get sick whenever people are sick around me. I have to really be careful and always fight that because that's something that that affected me. But what a lot of people don't realize is if your thyroid is not right, you may need more vitamin D. If your gut is not right, if you have a damaged gut, you will probably need more vitamin D until it's healed. And people don't realize this. They're like, why is my vitamin D not raising? So for a long time, I had to take 10,000 units just to get it up to where it was like 50. And then all of a sudden it started to repair. And now I take about 7 just to maintain it. So it's not about like, oh, is that too much or not too much? You need to get your numbers checked and just go by that.
Right. People go, oh, that's way too much. But
it's
if
up
you
to
check
you.
your numbers and your numbers are within the, I like it to middle or high normal range.
My doctor wants me like 80, at least 80. So I have one of those doctors who's like, he's really progressive. He likes the 80 to 100 range.
I know if I kick off, you're going to marry him.
I am. He's like probably late 70s, maybe close to 80. But I'm telling you, he's like a magician. He made me feel so much better fast. See, this is what it's all about. He made me feel better fast when I thought my other doctor was trying to kill me. So he is amazing. Yeah. I'm terrified he's going to retire.
If you stay with us, we're going to talk about the last 3 letters in Bright Minds to help you feel better fast. To pre-order the book, go to feelbetterfast.com and download the free gifts we have for you. Welcome back. We're in our Feel Better Fast and Make It Last series. We're still working on B for brain and our Bright Minds mnemonic. You want to feel better fast, you have to optimize the physical functioning of your brain. And how you do that is you have brain envy, you care about it, and then you avoid things that hurt it and do things that help it. And we've talked about blood flow, retirement and aging, inflammation, genetics, head trauma, toxins, mental health, and immunity. In this podcast, we're going to finish Bright Minds by talking about neurohormone deficiencies, diabesity, and sleep. And so when your hormones are not right, in fact, you just talked about it, that when your hormones aren't right, you feel terrible.
Oh, no, you can want to die. Okay. Like I remember wanting to die, just wishing a truck would hit me. It's really important when you have thoughts like that, when you feel, even just recently, it was very different. When my thyroid was off, I wanted to die. But when I had a hysterectomy recently, it didn't do the same thing, but just from being down for so long and just the anesthesia and stuff like that. But when your hormones are off, I felt like a wet blanket was on me.
Well, and if you think about it, so the anesthesia is a toxin. People don't know that, but I've actually seen it hurt people's brains, and there's a whole literature to support that. There's the stress of the procedure, the pain, the having to be down. Plus, you have a busy brain.
Right.
You have...
I need to exercise.
You need more serotonin.
Oh my gosh.
As do many women.
I get depressed when I'm down.
Use exercise as an antidepressant. We already talked about that. And so when you can't exercise,
I started to get wonky.
It's harder for you. And so
but it's
all
really
of those
important
things,
to get these things checked, because when you start having thoughts like that, so many people blame it on, oh, well, I'm getting older. And no, that's a bad excuse. Go get your numbers checked. Get your hormones checked. Get your thyroid checked. Get your vitamin D level checked. Sometimes...
Get your DHEA, testosterone, insulin.
Sometimes
for women,
it's an easy fix.
Estrogen and progesterone. Get those levels checked. And I'm a huge fan of optimization.
Yeah.
I want your levels not low normal, but I want a mid-range to high normal so that you can get the most benefit from the hormones you take. Now, I don't want them excessively
No,
high.
we're not talking
I see
vanity.
some guys
No.
that their testosterone level's 1,500. That's a bad thing because then you become like a super guy, even less empathy and a higher libido,
Well,
which is the prescription for an affair.
And you become more
divorce.
aggressive. You become aggressive, and you're more likely to cheat.
Right.
So.
So it's about balance. So just as Tana said, we believe you should test your important numbers, including your hormones, every year so you know where you are. Now, the D in Bright Minds is diabesity, which is a huge problem in the United States. 40% of us are obese, 70% overweight. It's the biggest brain drain in the history of the United States. I published 2 studies that show as your weight goes up, the size and function of your brain goes down. In addition, 50% of us are either diabetic or pre-diabetic. That is a very dangerous combination of negativity for your brain. And so balancing your blood sugar with diet, which we'll talk about a little bit later on, and getting your weight under control with high quality calories and not too many of them, really critically important. And you can read our book, The Brain Warrior's Way. I mean, just yesterday I got pictures of a guy that had dropped 40 pounds. I mean, it's amazing how much better he looked. And he said, I am a brain warrior, which is, you're listening to The Brain Warrior's Way podcast. That's what we want you to be, armed, prepared, and aware to win the fight of your life for brain health. And then to feel better fast, you got to get your sleep right. If you don't sleep well, I mean, we had this discussion this morning. If you don't sleep well, you just don't feel right. Plus, if you don't get 7 hours of sleep at night, you have low overall blood flow to your brain, which means you're going to make more bad decisions.
Some of us need more. I need like 8.5. We 2 nights in a row now. We've been so busy. I got less than 7, a little less than 7. I feel hungover. I just don't. I feel for me, I know I shouldn't be driving. So it can be really bad.
Well, it's one of the most. There's actually more people killed every year.
I know.
From lack of sleep than from drunk drivers, and so. It's critical. You want to feel better fast, you got to get your sleep right. And ultimately, we've talked about brain health is 3 things. It's brain envy, got to care about it. Avoid things that hurt it, any of the Bright Minds risk factors, and do things that help it, the Bright Minds interventions that we've been talking about. With sleep, you have to have sleep envy. You have to know how important it is because when you sleep, your brain cleans or washes itself. So you want to avoid anything that hurts sleep and do things that help. So the things that hurt sleep, staying on your gadgets too late because it floods your brain with blue lights that turns off the production of melatonin that tells you to go to bed. Alcohol. And alcohol, many people use it. You even talked about earlier how many of the nurses used it to go to sleep in the morning if they work the night shift. But the problem with alcohol is it will help you go to sleep. It will suppress neurons. But then about 3 hours later, when it wears off, neurons will rebound up and wake you up. In addition, it'll make you go to the bathroom. So you're going to be up going to the bathroom. So avoid bright lights, alcohol, a warm room, noise, unless the noise is the ocean.
We actually have a couple of podcasts on sleep specifically where we go through all of this, all the things you can do, identify what's stealing your sleep, and fix, how to fix it. So.
Right. And hypnosis, meditation. I have little rituals at night before
Me too.
I go to sleep, and just put the time in to make sure you have time. So if you need to go to bed earlier, do that. Tom Brady, who, the football player, he actually plans on getting 9 hours of sleep every night because he knows his brain
Yeah, I need 8.5.
works better.
Yeah.
So, in summary, the B in Brain Excel and Feel Better Fast is you got to get your brain right. Brain envy, you got to care about it. Do things that help it and avoid things that hurt it. And if you do that, it's unbelievably how much better you can feel. So we were just at a conference on marriage given by our friend Steve Arterburn. And Steve, he's a really well-known author, radio host. He came to see me, I guess, about 5 years ago now, and he was scattered and impulsive.
And he does really important work, so it's, it's important that
Right, and his memory wasn't as good, and he came to see me, and his brain just looked terrible. And I basically gave him the Bright Minds prescription that we just gave you. And a couple of months into it, I got an email from him that he said, this is like 10 o'clock at night, and he said, my confirmation number for his rental car in Aruba, and it was an 11-digit number, and he tells me what it is, and I'm thinking, why do I care? And then the next sentence is, my hotel confirmation was, and I'm thinking, why do I care? I get 400 emails a day. I'm always trying to keep up. And he said, the reason that I know this is I'm supernaturally able to remember things, and they don't go away.
So funny.
He said, my productivity and creativity is off the charts. My relationship with my wife is better. I mean, this is only a few months into it, and it's just transformed his life by doing the right thing. So if you want to feel better fast.
And one of the reasons that's so important is because Steve does marriage counseling and marriage retreats, right? He's got a great book, Every Man's Battle. And what he does is he's trying to help people have better marriages. Well, you're not going to have a better marriage if your brain sucks. I mean, pardon my French, but that's just the truth,
Is
right?
that French?
Yeah, well, anyways, you're not going to have a good marriage if you have a terrible brain, because you're not going to have forethought. And what does our friend Earl Hensland say?
If there's no forethought, there is no foreplay.
Yikes.
Feel better fast.
And have a better marriage.
Pre-order the book at feelbetterfast.com. And when you do, we have 4 gifts for you, including Tana's brand new cookbook, the 10-Day Brain Boost. Stay with us.
I will embrace my many strengths.
I will not be tormented by my past.
I will find the right balance.
I will be calm and courageous.
I will be free. I am not just bipolar.
I am not just autism.
I'm not just depression.
I'm not just ADD.
I am not just anxiety.
I am not just OCD.
I am not just PTSD.
Welcome back to Feel Better Fast and Make It Last, our series on my brand new book, which people can pre-order at feelbetterfast.com. We've been talking about our Brain Excel formula, and we have a couple of more things to do on the brain, including what we're going to talk about in this podcast, Control Yourself. We're going to talk about how important it is to take care of your prefrontal cortex. And then in the next one, we're going to talk about change and how people can change their behavior. Mm-hmm. But the most human, thoughtful part of you is your prefrontal cortex. And I know we've talked about it before, but let's talk about it in more detail. We finished the last podcast by saying if there's no forethought, there is no foreplay. And yes, many guys can just turn on, but That's not true
Yeah, but
for
women
many
don't.
women.
Yeah.
Is that you need to be romanced.
Well, and women
little
for women that can start with helping her do the dishes and just being nice to her, giving her a hug, and you know what I mean, like just being kind and thoughtful throughout the day. You don't get to just show up, so it doesn't work like that.
So if you want to feel better fast physically, you have to use the front
You need to be
third
thinking about it when you wake up in the
of
morning.
your brain.
Yeah.
So the front third of your brain is called the prefrontal cortex.
Right.
Largest in humans than any other animal by far. It's 30% of the human brain, 11% of the chimpanzee's brain, 7% of Aslan's brain or your dog's brain, 3% of Miso's brain or your cat's brain, 1% of the mouse's brain. This is why you should never let a child hit a soccer ball with their forehead, because it can damage their prefrontal cortex. It's why you don't let kids play tackle football, because it can damage their brain. So what does the prefrontal cortex do? It's called the executive part of the brain because it's like the boss at work. It's involved with executive functions like focus and forethought, judgment, impulse control, organization, planning, empathy, learning from the mistakes you make. And when the prefrontal cortex is low in activity, as in ADD, or you've had too much to drink, or you're smoking pot, or it's hurt, all of those things tend to go out the window and you don't feel better fast. You have trouble focusing, you're more
like brain fog,
impulsive, you're easily distracted, you're disorganized, you tend to procrastinate, and the decisions you make are not that great.
And I know we've all had days like this. So yesterday I described it because 2 days in a row I got less than 7 hours of sleep and we were rushing, like on the go. You were on the Dr. Phil show. Like we were just so many things. We had to rush to an event and get there. And do you remember last night? I'm like, I feel like I've been hungover and my entire day has been out of sync. Left my phone somewhere. And I'm not used to that. Usually I'm pretty buttoned up. And I'm like, everything's out of sync. That's what that's like. That's exactly what it's like when your frontal lobes aren't working right. So
and it's very important. They're the last part of the brain to develop. And what that means, they're the last part of the brain that becomes myelinated. So myelin is a white fatty substance that wraps your neurons and it makes them more efficient. When you're like 2-3 months old, your occipital lobes myelinate. That's why when you look at a baby, the baby looks back and smiles at you because she's taking you in. And myelinization happens from the back of the brain, and it actually doesn't finish to the front part of your brain, so it goes back to front until you're about 25
and yet
or
we
27
send kids
years
off to
old.
live on their own at 18.
Which I'm just not a fan of because we see the incidence of depression and suicide, the first psychotic breaks when
They
kids
go off to college.
go off
First
to
year.
college. And so what disrupts myelinization? Smoking, drinking, drug use, depression,
Chronic
trauma,
stress.
toxins, so all the Bright Minds risk factors that
We
talked about. So I think we should be protecting children until they're a little bit older.
Yeah.
So when there are problems in the prefrontal cortex, erratic decision making, they tend to be late, their judgment, empathy, things are off. So if you want to have a healthy brain and you want to make good decisions, you have to protect your prefrontal cortex. And you do that by sleeping 7 hours at least, which is why for my travel schedule, because I travel a lot, I don't let them schedule 6 o'clock flights for me because I know that whole day may be in jeopardy because I might not be able to get
Yeah, and if you're a
7
morning
hours of
person
sleep.
like me, I could leave really early so that I can get to bed early. So you have to know your circadian rhythm, right? So that you can plan for that.
So sleep is essential. Eating. They've actually found relapse for addicts happens when their blood sugar goes low.
So avoid the
and
sugar.
So eating 3, 4, 5 times if you need to avoid the low blood flow states, which go with more anxiety and bad
And avoiding
decision-making.
foods that keep triggering the addiction center. So
You need to learn to
processed
say
foods.
no to yourself. It's like a muscle. Practice saying no to others. Too often, especially people with low frontal lobe, somebody asks them to do something, they'll just say yes. And I have my patients practice. I have to think about that.
I like
and then
that.
Ask
You taught me
them-
that. So I have to think. If you can't just say no, then just say I have to think about it. And the other one is no, thank you. So because people have a hard time, it's like, oh no, thank you. Just or I have to think about it. Just don't automatically say yes.
So people ask me all the time to do things, and I just can't, or I wouldn't be able to sleep. Be very clear about your goals. We talk about the one-page miracle a lot here. On one piece of paper, write down what you want, and then ask yourself, does this, what someone's asking me to do, fit the goals I have for my life? And it doesn't fit, you have to say no. In addiction circles, to help your judgment, they have a mnemonic called Halt. Don't get too hungry, low blood sugar. Angry, negative thinking drops brain function. Lonely or tired. So don't get too hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, because those are the things that increase relapse.
Yeah.
And then cut out sugar and foods that turn to sugar. It's just
talked about
so
that. Yeah.
important. So supplements can help boost the prefrontal cortex. We make focus and energy specifically to do that. Brand new study out of Holland. Omega-3 fatty acids actually increased executive function. So
And isn't theanine good too?
theanine can be very helpful. Ask yourself, does my behavior get me what I want? Does it fit the goals I have for my life? Tiny habits to help you with making good decisions. When I'm tempted by something that's bad for my brain, I'll hum to myself just for a few minutes until the temptation goes away. It's a new study on the computer game, Tetris, that people who have cravings, if they just play Tetris for like 10 minutes,
So
their
weird.
cravings
But isn't it
will go
weird
away.
how it okay, so that's a really weird thing. So sometimes when I'm having trouble sleeping, I will play the word games or Tetris, and it zones my brain out. I know some people say it keeps them awake. Not me. It puts me almost in a hypnotic trance. It's the weirdest thing. It's
And
weird.
another little tiny habit, when I feel out of sorts, I'll just take 10 deep diaphragmatic breaths. And in that way, get good oxygen to my brain, recenter myself. There are so many things.
Wait,
you
I
can do.
just have to I have to plug this, which is funny because I always tease you about it. So your soundtrack for Bright Minds and for Feel Better Fast that you came up with, it's a joke in our family because the guy who wears black jeans and black t-shirts got written up in Style magazine as
New
the
York
fat
Magazine.
Okay, New York Magazine
New
is
York Times Magazine.
style icon. Okay, fashion icon. And then he doesn't play a musical instrument or anything, but his two soundtracks have been on Billboard's top whatever list forever. It's crazy. It's so
So
annoying.
Barry Goldstein and I have we're now going to launch our third album. Barry creates all the music. I just help him with the direction of it.
Right.
So Music for
How
Bright
does this
Minds.
happen?
35 weeks on Billboard's New Age chart.
Makes
top
my daughter-
10. It debuted at number 2.
So let me-
And then coming soon in November, we have Feel Better Fast and Make It Last. It's beautiful music for focus, relaxation, creativity, sleep,
Right.
boost your mood. Because as we talked about, music can do that. And we hope it does really well, but we're not
So
creating it for that. We're creating it for you
But let me-
to feel better fast.
So but anyways, this makes my daughter roll her eyes, right? Just he just shows up and stuff happens like this. It's just crazy. But I do want to plug it because when I can't sleep at night, when I'm having trouble, or I'm feeling stressed, I have to admit, I hated even admitting it to you because it's just so ridiculous that you get all this stuff like that. It's amazing. It actually is really helpful. It helps me. There's tracks on there that help with meditation for increasing energy, but there are ones on there that help you just totally relax and just zone out. So it actually is a really good track. So
Feel better fast and make it last. When we come back, we're going to talk about change. You can pre-order the book now at feelbetterfast.com. And when you do, you can download the introduction in chapter 1 for the book, starter guide, sort of the cliff notes for Feel Better Fast, so helpful. In addition, audios to Feel Better Fast, hypnosis tracks, I Do For You, and Tana's new cookbook, The 10-Day Brain Boost. Stay with us. Use the code podcast10 to get a 10% discount on a full evaluation at amenclinics.com or on our supplements at brainmdhealth.com. Thank you for listening to the Brain Warriors Way podcast. Go to iTunes and leave a review, and you'll automatically be entered into a drawing to get a free signed copy of the Brain Warriors Way and the Brain Warriors Way cookbook we give away every month.